What's up, guys? Welcome back to another GT4 lap guide for week 4 of season 4 in iRacing. This time we're going to be around Hungaroring. Now, Hungaroring is a little bit tricky. The incident limit or the track limit before you get an incident point is definitely very sensitive. The other theme around here is definitely going to require quite a bit of patience. A lot of these corners are very long, especially for a low aero car, so we definitely need to be very precise, especially with the brake, but more so the timing than anything else of all of our inputs. It's a really good track. The Porsche is definitely feeling a lot better here than it was last week at Road Atlanta. With that being said, we'll jump right into it. So coming up to turn one is definitely a little bit tricky, especially to find your brake markers. We're going to move up here just a little bit. Now the brake marker that I've been liking to use is this gray patch right here on the track surface itself. Now the other things that we can use is the 100 board, this white line traveling across the track surface. We also have this pole on the fence line that has these supporting stands. Now additionally there is one to the right as well. Now, these stands are a little bit tricky to use. They're really hard to spot while you're driving. The one on the right is very far and more than likely will be out of your field of view as well. The gray patch on the track surface is definitely what I prefer. Now going up to it, we can see I have about a car length before my hood line to that gray patch by the time I'm getting on the brakes. So this is something that you're definitely going to have to play with, figure out timing and what works best for you. Otherwise, there's not really any great visual cues as to when you should be getting on the brakes. This is about as deep as I've been able to go, maybe just a little bit deeper into the corner before I'm getting on the brakes, and we don't have any major references here. We do have some discolored Armco barrier here that we can use, but again, that's going to come to distance to, for example, the distance from this discoloration to the A-pillar, or something along the lines of distance to the 100 board, that gray patch, the line, etc. So you'll have to play around with it, see what works best for you. Now coming into turn one, we want to go pretty deep into the corner. This is a late apex corner, so we don't need to worry about getting up to the curbing as soon as it starts. We also want to use our downshift timing to be very specific with the rotation of the car. So in this instance, I'm downshifting my first two downshifts while in a straight line under braking. I'm going to utilize that last downshift in the second gear right at turn in to help with a little bit of the rotation. We want to keep it, like I said, a late apex. You want to get on throttle early. Now the issue on track out, if we get our right side tires any further past the red and white curbing, we're going to run into an off track. Now the other thing I want to mention about turn one, especially on our green flag starts, people will absolutely want to be sending it on the inside here. Turn one's definitely very wide, and because of how it opens up on exit, that does leave room and space for multiple cars to go through, 2, 3 wide potentially. Now with that being said, we want to be defensive if the car behind is close enough. So the gap that I like to use is between 0.5 and 0.4 tenths. If they're that close or closer, then we want to stay defensive. As soon as they start to track out to go around the outside, we can start to move over as well. Now where this comes into play, if we have an inside line here, it's a little bit easier to stay inside and get a run out of the corner and still leave a little bit of space. If you're on the outside line, this definitely starts to feel like the track closes up on you as you start to get on power. So in this situation, the inside line is definitely going to be the preferred way, whether it's defending or passing. Now as we come up to turn two, it is a left-hander. The corner's downhill and it's off camber, so the car definitely starts to fall away. Now there's a couple different things we can use as a braking marker here as well. Either right after we pass the 100 board or if we wanted to go a little bit deeper, as soon as this concrete starts to open up a little bit for the curbing itself. So I get on brakes just in between the two of them. Now turn 2 has a couple different lines we can take. We can stay all the way to the right hand side, keep it wide on entry and get a late apex into the corner. The other approach is to double apex this corner. So we're going to come right up against the curbing at entry. We're going to come off. We're going to utilize that last downshift about mid corner to help with rotation, getting the car back in. We come right back in and throttle out on exit. Now the difference between the two lines seems to be pretty marginal as far as pace goes. Once again, it's something that you'll have to play with, see what's feeling and working best for you. Ultimately, the confidence is what's going to make the difference in your lap times. Now on track out of turn 2, this is what I refer to as no man's land. Now we don't want to track all the way out to the right hand side. That's going to compromise our exit speed and entry speed coming into turn 3. But we also don't want to keep it too tight on the left hand side because we'll be slow out of the corner, and then we're adding distance once we get down here, and we'll be losing a little bit of lap time there. So you're kind of floating and almost like a pinball machine in between the right hand side and the left hand side. So I'm going to play the set speed just real quick. We want to open up turn 3 as much as possible to the point where we can be full throttle through here. That does not require you to be all the way to the left-hand side of the track, but we want to be about in the middle in order to make that technique and that line work. On track out, we can put our right side tires right onto the red and white curbs. Any further than that, we'll risk that incident point. Now coming up to turn 4, this is another tricky one, especially to pick your braking marker as well as our turn in. So we have our 100 board here as well as our white line coming across the track once again. I'm braking just ever so slightly before it. So this will come down to a timing thing, or a cadence as what we like to refer it to. We're going to get on the brakes, downshift one time into 4th gear, or it could vary a little bit more depending on what car you're driving. Once we get on the curb, we want to get the car slowed down. Our initial pressure will be in a straight line once again. We want to trail brake all the way to the apex. So right as I'm touching the curb here, we can see just ever slight amount of brake pressure as I'm bleeding off. If we carry too much speed here, we do risk going too far out to the right hand side on exit. And once again, we'll give you an off track. This is about the limit here. If we get left side tires into the red and white curbing, we do risk that incident point. Now coming back over, we want to try to open up turn 5 as much as possible. If you can get all the way over to the left, that's great. But because the distance on exit from 4 coming into 5 is so short, that might be a little bit tricky. So you can make a left, you can be on the left-hand side of the track and not entirely over here, and it should still be able to work. The end of the tire barrier is my reference for getting on the brakes. We want to use our peak amount of pressure in a straight line once again. Now this is uphill and a little bit off camber as well, so we're going to bleed that brake pressure off as we start to turn the car in and get back onto the apex. Here I'm in 3rd gear. We can get on throttle pretty quickly. Once again, the turn is going uphill on exit, so the car will want to grip up onto that surface. Now there's a theme building here. Our right side tires cannot go past the white line on exit here without risking that incident point. Coming up to the chicane, we're going to move over to the left hand side and get right on top of this curbing here. Right at the beginning of this concrete patch is where I'm getting on the brakes, and we'll downshift from 4th all the way down to 2nd. We want to get a little bit of a late apex here. We want to make this as straight as possible, especially on exit. The other thing to note, we can't put our left side tires any farther to the right than the white line here, so that will be our limit. And the same applies for a left-hander. We can't put our right side tires any farther to the left than this white line. On exit, you can abuse quite a bit of the concrete patch here. If we touch any of the grass, that will be an off track as well. Or better yet, left side tires cannot cross this white line. Now coming up to this next complex, it's going to be a lot of, I'm going to compromise my exit here to get a better entry for the next one. So we need to look at this entire complex as one complementing complex. So coming into here, we want to trail brake all the way to exit, all the way to apex. We're going to keep it tight on exit, so middle of the track is as far out as we're going to go. We're going to try to get back over to the left to open up this right-hander. It does require quite a bit of trail braking pressure all the way to the curbing, and we can get on throttle pretty early. Now here we can get our right side tires all the way onto the red and white curbing. Any farther than that, once again, we'll collect an off track. And then for this left-hander, we want to try to open it up and keep it as tight as possible on exit. The idea is to try to get onto this curbing with a car in a straight momentum or with a straight steering angle. So we'll come across that curb, and once I'm mounting that curb, I start to trail brake and downshift one time. We'll trail that brake pressure all the way to the apex, and then we can get on throttle right as we're touching it. Now this corner feels like it's going to be a lot slower than it actually is. It's quite a long sweeper, so we can get on throttle pretty early, get all the way to track out and abuse that curbing. Now once again, right side tires cannot go any farther over than the red and white curbing, so this is just about the limit. Now depending on the exit that you get out of that corner, we might be in 4th gear or 5th gear. If you're upshifting into 5th gear, that means you nailed it. You had a great exit and a great run through that little complex. Now with that being said, if you're upshifting into 5th gear, we need to brake even just a little bit sooner coming into this right-hander. This is a downhill corner, so we want to get the car slowed down and prepared ahead of time. 5th gear, we want to brake right before the start of the curbing. If you're in 4th gear, you can brake right at the start of the curbing. We're going to get the car slowed down and turn in a little bit earlier. We want to drive our right side tires onto this concrete patch. Our left side tires, once again, not going any further to the right than our inside white line. We can get on throttle pretty early. We have quite a bit of space for track out. Once again, right side tires cannot go any farther over than the white line. Now these switchbacks are very similar to Okayama. The difference is that these switchbacks are going to be much longer. You're going to spend a lot more time in here. So we want to get a late apex. If we're touching the curb any sooner than halfway through this corner, that's a good indication you've overslowed the car. So we want to carry a decent amount of speed into this corner, and then we're going to use very light trail braking pressure, and then use our downshifts through the corner to help slow the car and also rotate the car. We can get on the curb just a little bit and throttle out on exit. We can also drive through this blend line for the pit entrance without any problems. We're not going to gain any off tracks or anything there. And then same with the second switchback. I do take a little bit earlier of an entry and keep it pretty tight. Something to play with here, we can try to take a little bit wider of a line, so go in a little bit deeper and turn in a little bit later into the corner, but we'll still utilize the same technique of a little bit of trail brake pressure to get through it. We're going to use our downshifts once again to get the car rotated. Now the last thing to note, I've been using this red patch on the curbing as my indication to get back on the throttle. Now with that being said, the car needs to be pointed in this direction. If the car is pointed towards the Pirelli signs or even this orange barrier, the car has not rotated enough yet to get back on throttle, especially at 100% throttle. So this is where the patience really comes into play. We need to make sure that the car is pointed in the right direction before we're starting to get back on the power. And on exit, once again, we can use quite a bit of this surface. Now right side tires cannot go past that white line. But otherwise, that's our lap around Hungaroring. Now we'll watch a full pace lap and cockpit view. And that's going to be our lap around Hungaroring. As always, if you guys have any questions, shoot me a message on Discord, or you can drop a comment on the YouTube channel. We are getting ready to start Season 2 here in a couple weeks, so if anybody is interested in joining the league or wants to take advantage of any of the tips or tricks or training that we do, definitely reach out. As always, wish you guys the best of luck in officials, and we'll see you guys next week.